Good morning. I'm Brent Adams here with your Rural Strong Morning Ag Report for this Friday, January 26th. Leading off the headlines this morning, a land grant university economist notes some of the economic areas that ag producers have an eye on this year. More from USDA Radio's Rod Bain.
What might be among the farm level top stories of 2024? One might be the continuing efforts of growers to implement practices and models addressing climate concerns. Purdue University economist James Mintert says a recent survey indicates 1 out of 4 growers made or were making operational changes associated with climate, with the scope of changes ranging from cover crops to capital improvements such as tile drainage.
They're starting to make some changes, and the changes they're making are pretty much across the board. They're using some technology that they can purchase every winter or every crop season, and they're also looking at making some longer-term investments.
He adds producers also acknowledge high input cost as a concern, especially in these contexts.
Producers are concerned about a cost-price squeeze, but maybe different than some prior periods is that they are way more worried about input prices than they appear to be based on the risk of lower crop and livestock prices.
I'm Rod Bain, Department of Agriculture in Washington, D.C.
Well, the strength of the U.S. dollar compared to currency in other countries is a big factor in successfully exporting American ag commodities. The Federal Reserve says it won't raise interest rates for now, and Mike Zuzolo of Global Commodity Analytics says it would typically be good news for U.S. exports.
Well, it should have a dampening effect on the U.S. dollar, and it should have a dampening effect on higher bond yields. And I think you and I talked about this the last time we got together, that those were two major forces working against the commodity markets as we've come back from the WASDE report. And generally speaking, as we've come back from the Christmas and New Year holiday, the dollar is not breaking back. For the price action after the holiday, we saw the dollar rally sharply. I think it again goes back to China, and it goes back to the U.S. dollar being a safe haven in case we do have a deflationary pressure in China that's similar to what Japan experienced in the 90s. I think that's where the market is thinking this market's headed.
The financial markets overseas are having a direct impact on world currencies, keeping them below the value of the U.S. dollar.
The biggest issue seems to me to be that because we can't find a bottom in Hong Kong, we can't find a bottom in Shanghai in the equity markets, that's an indication that the money's staying out of China, and therefore the Chinese currency hit an 8 to 9 week low in the offshore market against the U.S. dollar. That spills over into currencies like the Brazilian real, which would hit a fresh 2 week low, almost a 3 week low against the U.S. dollar coming back from the holiday.
If the dollar keeps strengthening against other currencies, farmers are likely looking at lower prices in the next few months.
What I see happening next is if this dollar continues to be bought as a safe haven, we take out the report day lows from last Friday, which we did in wheat already. But if we do that in the corn and the beans, then technically speaking, and from the way these funds tend to trade, another 5 to 8% lower is what I'm suggesting to clients and subscribers as a possibility for where we're headed next as we get into February and that base price for the new crop corn and beans.
Again, that was Mike Zuzolo of Global Commodity Analytics. Well, the 24 states that produced the most milk totaled 18.1 billion pounds in December, down 0.1% from December 2022. November's revised production at 17.3 billion pounds was down 0.6% from November 2022. The November revision represented a decrease of 14 million pounds, or less than 0.1% from November's preliminary production estimate. The USDA says production per cow in those states averaged 2,030 pounds for December, 1 pound above December 2022. The number of milk cows on farms in the 24 states was 8.9 million head, 17,000 head below December 2022, but unchanged from November 2023. U.S. milk production during the October through December quarter totaled 55.6 billion pounds, down 0.6% from the same quarter in 2022. The average number of milk cows in the U.S. during the quarter was 9.36 million head, 16,000 head less than the July through September quarter, and 44,000 head less than the same time a year earlier. Well, a blast of cold weather in the Corn Belt sent ethanol production down 22% last week to its lowest point in 3 years. Bloomberg says America's output of the corn-based biofuel missed all its survey estimates, while stockpiles hit the highest level since March. The Energy Information Administration says the rise in stockpiles was the 8th straight week of increases. Ethanol production dropped to 18,000 barrels a day during the week ending January 19th, down from 1.054 million barrels during the previous week and the lowest levels since the 7 days ending February 19th, 2021. The Midwest, which produces the most ethanol in the country, had production fall to 766,000 barrels a day, a significant drop from the 1.001 million a week earlier. The EIA says Rocky Mountain production declined, East Coast production was unchanged, and Gulf Coast production rose by 21,000 barrels a day. Inventories reached 25.815 million barrels. And finally, this morning, your dog may be more at risk from severe cold weather than you might think. Here to tell us why is USDA Radio's Gary Crawford.
Many people think dogs are not very sensitive to super cold conditions. Wrong.
Just like cold can be dangerous for us, it absolutely can be for them too, even the winter hardy breeds.
Especially when combined with wind and snow and icing conditions. USDA veterinarian Dr. Dawn Fitzhugh.
Even the furriest of animals, that wind comes along and it can separate their hair and get right down to their skin and make them feel super chilled. And so the wind chill can be dangerous for them, just like it is for us.
Dogs can even suffer from frostbite, especially around the ears. Dawn says also if you walk your dog on snowy or icy surfaces, chunks of ice can sometimes wedge in there between the dog's paw pads.
And that can be really painful for them.
And so if the dog limps or refuses to walk, that might be the reason. Or it might be the dog is just too cold, maybe suffering from hypothermia, especially if the dog is shivering. Fitzhugh says that's when we need to get that dog out of the cold into someplace warm and dry. Gary Crawford for the U.S. Department of Agriculture.
We can keep up with the latest from the world of agriculture by subscribing to the Tractors and Troubadours podcast from Rural Strong Media. Each week, I bring you agriculture industry newsmakers, hot button industry issues, educational features, and the best in traditional country music. The Tractors and Troubadours podcast can be found at ruralstrongmedia.com or wherever you get your podcasts. Episode 116 is out now, and we encourage you to go check it out. We're learning about the sorghum industry with National Sorghum Producers Chairman Craig Meeker and United Sorghum Checkoff Executive Director Norma Ritz Johnson. We're also talking strategies for improving mineral quality in forage for livestock, and we hear the latest single from traditional country artist Dennis Ledbetter and Highway 101's Nikki Nelson. Again, that can be found on episode 116 of the Tractors and Troubadours podcast, available now at ruralstrongmedia.com or wherever you get your podcasts. We also invite you to join us daily on Rural Strong Radio, our 24/7 streaming radio station, found at ruralstrongmedia.com or on the Live 365 streaming radio app for your mobile device. Each day, we bring you our award-winning agriculture programming, as well as the best in traditional country music, mixed in with a little bluegrass, western swing, southern rock, and inspirational music. Again, the place to find Rural Strong Radio is ruralstrongmedia.com or the Live 365 streaming radio app. We're portable, so take us with you everywhere you go while you're working on the farm or ranch. Let's get through the workday together. Well, I'll be back on Monday with another Rural Strong Morning Ag Report here on Steve Shetler Media. Be safe out there and make it a great weekend, everybody.